Hello and welcome to the session on learning disability. In every classroom, there sits at least one who is obviously and demonstrably bright but who fails to keep up with his class in one or more subjects. These children differ from one another in many ways. Some are restless and move about a lot. Some are easily distracted from what they are doing and some have trouble paying attention. As is true of children in general, no two of these children are ever alike. Some children are a source of irritation and despair to teachers and parents alike. The reactions of these parents and teachers inevitably increase the pressure on the child who is already frustrated. It is therefore not surprising that such children develop dislike for school, anger for teachers, jealousy towards successful siblings and peers, negative self-evaluations and behavior such as aggression. This further complicates their level and the task of finding out what is wrong with them. People will blame the learning problem, that is the aggression, instead of recognizing that the aggression is a result of the learning problems. Learning refers to the change in a subject's behavior to a given situation brought about by his repeated experiences in that situation. The process of learning involves 4 stages of information processing like input, integration, memory and output. People with learning disability have trouble with one or more of these steps. Learning disability is a disorder which affects the selection, retention and expression of information. It can be seen in children with average and above average intelligence. The incoming and outgoing information may be scrambled as it travels between the senses and the brain. The learning disabled people have difficulty in taking, organizing and acting on information their brains receive through the senses. The term learning disabled is applied for heterogeneous group of children who experience difficulty in maintaining normal progress in school, but they are not mentally retarded, emotionally disturbed or physically handicapped. Usually, there is significant discrepancy between what is expected from the child and the performance of the child on school tasks or standardized tasks. Learning disorders are mainly caused by the intrinsic factors like central nervous system dysfunction and specific deficits in information processing or the ability to learn. Although one or the other learning problems may be caused by extrinsic factors like mental retardation, sensory impairment, emotional disturbance, cultural differences, lack of educational opportunities, etc., learning disability is not the direct result of such external factors or conditions. There are many children who don't do well in school, many children who have difficulty in learning, but not all are learning disabled. The learning disabled child is not mentally retarded. The learning disabled child is not physically impaired. The learning disabled child is not emotionally disturbed and the learning disabled child is not culturally disadvantaged. Definitions. Varied definitions of the term learning disability have been given. Beginning in 1962 with Samuel Kick's first effort to define the term, professionals, parents and government agents have been trying to develop a valid, widely accepted definition. According to Myers and Hamill in 1969, learning disability is an aspect of specific type of exceptional child and not general to all children with learning problems. S. A. Cook in 1971 defined as follows: the term learning disability is not meant to be used for children with minor or temporary difficulties in learning, but with a severe discrepancy between ability and achievement in educational performance and such severe discrepancy described as learning disabilities with significant learning problems that cannot be explained by mental retardation, sensory impairment, emotional disturbance or lack of opportunity to learn. National Joint Committee on Learning Disabilities USA defined LD as this: learning disabilities as a generic term refers to a heterogeneous group of disorders manifested by significant difficulties in the acquisition and use of listening, speaking, reading, writing, reasoning or mathematical abilities. These disorders are intrinsic to the individual, presumed to be due to central nervous system dysfunction, and many occur across the lifespan. Problems in self-regulatory behaviors, social perception and social interaction may exist with learning disabilities, but do not by themselves constitute learning disability. Causative factors and behavioral manifestations. Once one is aware of the learning disabilities, it is essential to find out the reasons behind it. Depending on the types of learning disabilities found in children, a number of researches have been conducted to find out the possible factors or causes leading to learning disabilities. Some of the factors are within the child, while others are in the environment. The main causes of learning disabilities can be broadly classified into 4 categories: physiological factors, psychological factors, environmental factors and educational factors. Physiological factors: brain injury, minimal brain function and damage to central nervous system are considered as primary or basic causes of learning disabilities. Brain damage can occur due to prolonged labor, premature birth, birth complications, maternal age, use of drugs and alcohol during pregnancy. Neurological damage can lead to impulsivity, figure ground circumstances, visual motor disorders, thinking and conceptual disorders. Genetic factors may also be the cause of learning disabilities. It may occur in particular families. Various metabolic or biochemical factors may cause learning disabilities like hyperactivity. Prenatal and postnatal factors may lead to LD. Many learning disabled children were most often the products of pregnancies with complication. For example, low birth weight, maternal endocrine disorder, radiation, maternal age, premature birth accidents, head injuries, malnutrition, etc. Lack in the maturation of central nervous system components may also cause learning disability. Psychological factors. Children with learning disabilities may exhibit disorders in basic psychological functions such as perception, recall and conceptualization. Many learning disabled children demonstrate impulsive behavior, including difficulty in motor movements, distractibility and inattention. It may not be caused by lack of ability or knowledge. Partial cause may be an impulsive cognitive tempo or disposition in performing tasks or answering questions. Environmental factors. Each learner demands some physical and emotional basis from his environment. There are many environmental factors that cause learning disability. The poor nourishment and defective environment received by the fetus for development in the mother's womb. Inadequate nutrition. Maternal diet during pregnancy and quantity and quality of child's food intake. Chronic cold, severe diseases, respiratory problem and allergies may cause learning disability. Lack of sensory stimulation. A child requires the input of his senses to learn about his environment and himself. Language stimulation. Language disorder may be at the root of many disabilities in reading, arithmetic and written language. Learning disabled children have particular problems in understanding and using language properly. Emotional and social development. Many learning disabled children are anxious, insecure, aggressive, impulsive and angry. It may be due to the lack of natural security, consistency, love, warmth and acceptance at home and school. Due to segregation of society as good, bad and average, unpleasant feelings are generated which in turn lead to poor social relations. Educational problems. Learning disability may be caused as a result of certain educational factors both on the part of teachers as well as students. Unskilled and untrained teachers, inadequate and inappropriate teaching, biased attitudes and very high or low expectations of teachers from students develop learning disability in children. Narrow facilities like lack of school, lack of liberty, etc. prevent the child from achieving what his peers do. Faulty methods of instruction, inappropriate teaching methods, lack of motivation may be considered as the causes of childhood learning disorders. Undesirable school conditions, blackboard, light, seating arrangement are also causing learning disability. General characteristics of learning disability. Usually, learning disabled children are not differentiated from normal population, but closer look at them reveal that they have certain characteristics which are manifested in their behavior significantly to greater extent and longer in duration than others. Such characteristics and their behavior manifestation are necessary to identify learning disability at a very early stage itself. Certain common and well-known characteristics of learning disabled children can be enumerated as follows. Abnormal activity level. Hyperactive, constantly engaged in some form of activity. Hypoactive, fails to react to environmental changes, show no interest in sports and games. Attention problems, short attention span, easily distracted by what is going on in surroundings. They are unable to concentrate on any task. Preservation, attention became fixed upon a single task. The task is repeated over and over even it is unwanted. Motor problems, inadequate coordination, poor tactile kinesthetic discrimination. It is a difficulty in discriminating shapes, texture and size merely by touching. Visual motor coordination, child can draw a line between two lines from start to finish and can follow the path of puzzles. Visual perceptual problems, poor visual discrimination, difficulty in finding out similarity and differences between objects, colors and shapes. Difficulty in visual figures ground differentiation. This is the inability to perceive foreground. While reading, they may skip lines, can't paint within the outline, etc. Difficulty in visual closure. This is a difficulty in identifying the missing parts in shapes, pictures and words. They can't complete the figures or letters written in dots. Sequence. This is a more frequently noticed problem. It is a difficulty in producing sequences of visual items from memory. Auditory perceptual problem, poor auditory discrimination, unable to distinguish one from the other. Difficulty in auditory figure ground differentiation. They can't concentrate on verbal discussion and easily distracted by other environmental factors. Behavioral problems, fidgeting of hands and feet, difficulty in remaining on the seat and waiting for their turns, high distractibility, blurting out answers before questions have been completed, frequent shift from one activity to another, difficulty in sustaining attention, difficulty in playing quietly, losing things necessary for school and home, engages in physically dangerous activities, low frustration tolerance, daydreaming, mood swings. Linguistic skills, poor grammar, poor in understanding the meaning of language, poor in the knowledge of how sounds make up words, not conversed in the social use of language, unskilled conversationalists. Metacognitive abilities. Lack of awareness of skills needed for a task. Lack of ability for time managing. Inability to plan one's moves. Inability to evaluate effectiveness. Lack of ability to remediate difficulties. Social skills. Inability in keeping up with social norms. Lack of social comprehensive skills. Poor role-taking skills. Listening and speaking difficulty. Lack of proper eye contact. Cannot read social situations. Does not understand body language. No sense of humor. Cannot think in an orderly, logical way. Motivational skills. Pessimism. Viewing themselves as being controlled externally. High failure expectancy. Highlighting more of failures than success. Identification of learning disabled children. Identification of the learning disabled children may be done mainly in two ways: the employment of non-testing and testing devices. Non-testing devices. In non-testing devices, we may include techniques like observation, rating scale, checklist, interview, etc. By employing these devices, we try to identify the learning disabled in relation to their general personality and characteristics. We may find a list of these characteristics common with the learning disabled and weigh the observed child in relation to these for the identification of the degree of disability. We may also seek the opinion of the teachers and other persons regarding the learning abilities, mental level, scholastic potential, etc. through such devices for the diagnosis and identification of learning disabilities of children. Testing devices. Testing devices include different types of tests that can be used as diagnostic measures for the identification and assessment of children with different kinds of learning disabilities. Generally, the following types of tests fall into this category. Standardized diagnostic test. There are many such tests available in our country as well as abroad. With the help of norms given in these tests, we can assess the relative educational standard of children of same age or grade and thus may be acquainted with the educational deficits and deficiency of a particular child. As a result, we can have a valid and reliable diagnosis of the learning difficulties in various areas of scholastic performance, especially in language, mathematics, social and experimental skills, etc. As examples of such available standardized tests, we may name the following: diagnostic test in decimal systems and percentage by V.P. Sharma and Shukla. Dural analysis of reading difficulty by Dural. The Stanford Diagnostic Arithmetic Test by Betty, Madden and Gardner. The Spache Diagnostic Reading Scale by Spache. The Gates-McKillop Reading. Diagnostic Test by Gates and McKillop. Ability Test or Process Tests. Learning disabled suffer from the inability or incapacity in their process of learning and understanding. The ability test or process test are so designed as to assess the degree of their inability or poor ability to understand and learn. Since the learning of a child is processed through his abilities of visual perception, auditory perception, eye motor coordination, psycholinguistic understanding, etc., the ability test or process test are designed to test the abilities of the children related to those areas. As example of such, we may cite the following: the Marianne Frosting Developmental Test of Visual Perception by Frosting, Lefevre and Whittlesey. Illinois Test of Psycholinguistic Abilities by Kirk, McCarthy and Cook. Achievement tests. These tests are designed to assess the degree of achievement of the children in various knowledge, skills and performance process areas. These may be of two types, namely standardized achievement test and teacher-made tests. While the former are structured for administration, the latter are constructed by individual teachers in their respective subjects or areas for assessing the degree of children's achievement or diagnosing their learning difficulties and disabilities. The performance of the individual students in these tests may reveal many things about the nature and extent of learning deficiencies and deficits related to various learning areas. Daily assessment system. There can be a systematic, well-planned, regular daily assessment system in schools for recording the children's achievement on various specific knowledge, skill and performance areas. This process of continued information may bring into limelight many important things related with the nature and extent of learning deficiencies and deficits of individual learners, particularly in relation to the process of their learning and understanding. Educational provisions for the learning disabled. Provision of specialized school or classes. This provision is based on the assumption that learning disabled children are quite distinct from other children of their schools or classes. They cannot be taught along with others as they suffer from severe learning deficiencies and deficits. Hence, there should be special schools or at least separate classes for them where they can be taught by specialized teachers through special methods and techniques, essentially on the same curriculum with greater care and attention. In fact, such segregation is not feasible and practicable. It is far from ground realities and may prove futile, as we can't arrange segregation or separation based on the individualized learning inefficiencies and deficits. Each of the learning disabled is a unique case in itself. He or she needs individualized attention, care, or even different methods, techniques and treatment for the rectification of his or her deficiency and overall adjustment. Provision of special remedial and educational programs. This provision can work well in the existing school and the educational setup. Here the beginning can be made with proper identification of the nature, type and amount of learning difficulties, deficiencies or deficits. Then proper remedial and educational programs may be made out of the ready-made programs available having provision for such educational services. The remedial programs, material and guidance available through different sources may help the learning disabled. Structuring and improving the existing environmental setup. Many of the learning difficulties and deficiencies of the children are caused by the uncongenial, improper and negative factors present in their physical, social, cultural and educational environment. Therefore, attempts should be properly made for the adequate structuring and improving the existing environmental setup. It will definitely help in reducing the cases of learning disabled by providing them due assistance, care and guidance. The task requires joint efforts of all who are concerned with the brought up education and welfare of the children. The parents, other family members, teachers, guidance and counseling workers, educational authorities, social and community agencies, etc. all should join hands for providing due care, attention and remedial and educational programs to the learning disabled. They should help them in acquiring desirable personality traits. Whether we employ specialized trained teachers or the usual classroom or subject teachers with some extra knowledge and training to deal with the learning disabled, the one thing which is more important is their behavior towards these children. One should not lose patience, as these children are essentially slow learners, underachievers and far from satisfactory in their socio-psychological behavior. They should be accepted with all their weaknesses and deficiencies. The parents, elders and teachers all should show love and care while dealing with them. Our approach towards them should be very constructive, pleasant and encouraging. This helps them to learn the proper methods of learning and behaving and develop required self-confidence and positive attitudes. Let us summarize what we have discussed so far. The chapter provides a detailed picture of learning disability. The different definitions, causative factors, behavior manifestation of the learning disabled children are well discussed. Different methods for the identification of learning disabled and educational provisions for the learning disabled are also well explained. Now, you can try to answer the questions given here. Define learning disability. What are the physiological causes of learning disability? What are the environmental factors which lead to learning disability? What are the general characteristics of learning disability? What are the different tests to identify LD? Enumerate briefly the educational provisions for the learning disabled. Hope that you may go through the reference books given here for further understanding. Encyclopedia of School Psychology in 2005, edited by Lee. Sage Publications, New Delhi. Learning Disability and Child Altruism, Anxiety and Aggression, Volume 10 in 2006 by Millen, Ho and Wong. Learning Disabilities in Primary School Children in 2003 by Pante, Anmol Publications Private Limited, New Delhi. Learning Disabilities, a Practical Guide to the Practitioners in 2000 by Reddy, Ramar and Kuzuma. Discovery Publishing House, New Delhi. Thank you for watching this program. We will meet again with another topic. Have a nice day.